Good evening and welcome to Legal Tech Live, episode 56. This is an exciting episode because we have Maya Markovich joining us from Nextlaw Labs. She is the director of product from Nextlaw Labs, and replacing Ivan Rakelin tonight is our guest host, Eli Mattern from Savvy Suit. And I understand that the two of you have met before. Is that true?
Yes.
Yes. Okay. So
Mexican food together.
So it was the perfect time for you to ask me to co-host.
This is excellent, exciting, and I have not had the opportunity to meet either of them in person, though we've been. I think Maya and I were at Codex at the same time and didn't realize it, and Ellie and I were she was
in
coming
the same city
to San Francisco while I was leaving San Francisco at the time, so we didn't get together. But I want to thank you both for being here tonight. Maya, I was looking for the perfect description of you, and actually you have a great description on your LinkedIn profile. So I'm going to use that, and then I'm going to ask you to expand on your background and your experience. Maya is a multi-dimensional product and innovation leader with roots in legal, change management, behavioral science, and tech industries, a deep skill set in strategic planning, detecting emerging market trends, and market positioning. And you've got a fascinating background here. You've got the BA and MA in psychology from Stanford, and you have the JD from Hastings. So I see now the behavioral aspects of your experience. And how did you get into product marketing and then into Nextlaw Labs?
I'm really glad that I put some thought into my.
Very well done. And I just gave the audience a little bit of it. So
thank you. I mean, my career path hasn't really been linear, but it's all worked out. I think as kind of as it was meant to be. I have the background in behavioral science and organizational psychology, and did change management consulting. And I went to law school and practiced in commercial litigation for several years. And I was really intrigued by the use of technology to combat, what was coming up as like the big thing everybody was worried about, which was the increasing data deluge. So, that just seems quaint now almost, but I eventually just made the shift over to the legal tech provider side in, various product and product marketing roles and product management roles, targeting kind of the various angles of the business and practice of law. So, then Nextlaw came along, and it was just an awesome opportunity to bring all those threads together in a new way. And it makes my career path look like, I meant to have it that way.
That is, and you did it. That was quite the summary. So this wasn't your first experience with product marketing though, was it? Or director of product? Okay.
No. Yeah.
So tell us some of your other experiences before you came to Nextlaw.
You mean after? So, my first jump over
the product stuff was after practicing.
Yeah. Right. After I left practicing, the first place I worked was actually CT Summation, which was at that time owned by Wolters Kluwer, an early e-discovery company, which is where I really was dealing with all the data. Then I worked. It was, really nobody knew. I was brought in actually on the to be kind of the end user voice because I didn't have a background in tech, but the director of the team, had a lot of engineers and wanted somebody who was going to be able to kind of speak to the end user experience. And so, and then, throughout, and I went to a couple of different places between then and now, but really as I was kind of just being pushed more and more towards the product marketing side of things, kind of as the lawyer, the writer, kind of the person who understood the target market. And so, I mean, not everybody should, right? But and as a result, I started doing more product marketing roles and found that was really what I liked, kind of being able to translate the difficult kind of technology concepts into understandable messaging and content. And so, and then Nextlaw Labs came along, and they was founded in 2015, which seems like a long time ago now, but really wasn't that long ago.
Yeah. And
I'm sure that
Go ahead, Ellie, please.
I'm sure that you don't have favorite products, and I certainly won't ask you to say which is your favorite. But did you ever have an elevator pitch or a marketing plan for one product that you're like, I nailed that? Like that.
Ironically, I would say that the thing I probably felt the most strongly about was actually a product that had a back end of technology, but really the main product was actually process, which really weaves in a lot of, the change management stuff and all the stuff that now we know is increasingly out there to, do workflow mapping and understanding that not all problems need technology, as it turns out.
Preach.
Right.
That is a message I tell people all the time. And the analogy I always use is that if you have somebody yelling gibberish and you hand them a megaphone, you don't make them not yell gibberish. You just make them louder with their gibberish.
Yeah.
So technology doesn't solve the problem.
Doesn't solve the problem. And trash data goes in and you get a trash product too, or trash results. In one of our friends, I think you guys are probably both know Ivy Gray, and she's always promoting incremental change. Try using the products you already have. And using them.
Try finding the products you already have. Yeah.
Oh gosh.
So you've been with Nextlaw now for three and a half years.
Yeah.
So tell us a little bit about, because this is constantly, when I started first following Nextlaw, and probably still to this day, I'm a little confused between Nextlaw Labs and Nextlaw Ventures, as I've mentioned to you before.
Yes. Well, there is a lot of overlap, for sure. So Nextlaw Ventures is an independent and autonomous early stage legal tech capital fund. Okay. The primary role of Ventures is to identify innovative legal tech companies to invest in. Labs is kind of the other side of the coin, and we help accelerate those companies and identify ways to kind of help them access the Denton's ecosystem, which, by the way, is not only just Denton's and his clients, but also the Nextlaw referral network, which Denton's founded and is now about 700 small to mid-sized firms around the world. So what Labs does is really plants these kind of flags of innovation all around the ecosystem. It can be, working with a client or a pilot program or a practice or an implementation of a technology, and drive the implementation of those meaningful solutions. And they often leverage the ventures portfolio companies. Okay.
So they are not necessarily ventures only supports labs companies. Is that, or no?
No, the Venn diagram is an almost complete overlap, but we have labs companies, for instance, that we haven't, yet had the opportunity to invest in. It doesn't necessarily have to, always come first investment, then implementation. Yeah. Sometimes it's the other way around. And a lot of times it depends how we hear about the company. If it comes through a connection, from a partner within Denton's that's heard about it, or a client who has mentioned it, then, it's more of an art than a science.
Fair enough. Ellie, you have any? Go ahead, please.
So I had asked kind of a question as a primer earlier. It's just something I'd love Maya, your take on, but also Nick, if you want to throw in your 2 cents. As a software development company, I know all of us use a lot of platform products, even if it's just down to hosting with AWS or Azure or any number of these other. How worried are you kind of generally with the ecosystem, the way that it's building, about privacy breaches at some of the core fundamental products that people build their products on top of?
Yeah, well, for one thing, we do, deep tech diligence, and we ensure that our team is understanding exactly, what the founders have created. We have no kind of ingoing bias as to platform or infrastructure. Cloud can have higher security concerns than on-prem integration. But with respect specifically to privacy, it's a concern really of any software user, right? From Facebook to Apereo, or, and it's table stakes, I think, for a technology to manage effectively manage user privacy. And I mean, it's particularly important to us as part of the Denton's ecosystem. So on the bright side, I mean, there is a lot of growth, obviously, but typically, we see legal tech companies are aware, of the high security requirements from firms, and they've already thought about these issues, or they've already gotten those questions, right?
By the time they come to you.
Yeah.
Could you tell us a little bit about the Denton's ecosystem? You said it's 700 small to mid-sized firms. Did you say all over the world?
No, sorry. I got a little bit ahead of myself there. So we have Denton's, which is the largest
all over the world.
In the world. I think it's got over 175 offices now, and that is global. It's 10,000 attorneys at this moment in time. And so we have really broad reach, obviously, and we can tap into that, just depending on the region or practice or sector that we're interested in. Especially, there's obviously a lot of overlap, with multinational clients and working together, Denton's attorneys that are working together across regions. There's also the Nextlaw referral network, which is it was just a referral network of firms that Denton's founded, and it includes I don't quote me, but I'm pretty sure it's over 700 now, small to medium-sized firms in the referral network. They're also all over the world. They have coverage everything other than maybe, North Korea and Yemen. Honestly, they're focusing on broad coverage. And so especially for our portfolio companies, they're able to not only tap into kind of the big law side of things, which often is, their primary market since they're applying to us. And that's one of our big differentiators as an investor. But also, the opportunity to access, subject matter experts and, potential another market channel to the small to mid-sized market.
That is a massive network to work within. And I do want to get into what you're seeing because we do mostly early stage startups on the show. I also want to thank Kelly Raker from LegalTechLIVE is here tonight watching. Diego Alcala is watching out of Puerto Rico, and Mitch Jackson from Southern California. So thank you all for joining, watching, and please let us know if you have any questions for Maya. And if it's a really embarrassing question, I won't allow it.
Cool.
We've already
just give it to Ellie then.
Well, yeah, I'll ask Ellie. Yeah, that'll work. So we generally interview early stage startups on the show. I did that to sort of differentiate from other legal shows a while ago. I wanted to see who people were before it blew up or before it fell apart. And I enjoyed, and we've had several of both. What is it that Denton's, or not Denton's, but Nextlaw Labs, what are your experiences there right now? What are you seeing in the legal tech startup space that you're excited about, and maybe even some of the things you're less than excited about, if you feel like sharing that?
Well, I mean, I'll tell you what I'm excited about after I tell you what we're seeing,
Okay.
which are so, there's definitely overlap there. But I mean, we have a really robust opportunity pipeline. Over the last 3 years, we've gotten over 300 investment applications. So one really cool thing that we've been doing lately is diving into our own data and pulling out some interesting trends and insights and kind of revisiting some of our initial, assumptions. So. I mean, in terms of the types of companies we have that are applying, they're mostly either seed or early stage, and they're from regions all across the world. Europe is a really hot spot of legal tech right now, especially France, which according to the Codex Tech Index has over 25% of the companies there. So India also seems to be increasing. And like I said, they're mostly targeting big law, whether advocacy or purely transactional work. There's a lot of interesting stuff bubbling up right now in things like document automation, IP, matter management, legal marketplaces, and this kind of automated risk management and compliance. I think those are growing very quickly. I think actually predictive analytics, with all of the buzz, is actually taking off kind of slowly, at least from our kind of what we've seen in our pipeline. And like I said, I mean, our applications are probably a little bit more skewed towards B2B because I don't really think that's reflective of the market in general. I think that's more, given the high number of online legal services companies out there. And I think it's just more reflective of the fact that our, Ventures real differentiator among investors is access to Dentons and Nextlaw. Of that stuff, I mean, what do I think is the best, coolest stuff? I mean, there's an explosion, obviously, we're very happy about that, of legal tech companies and growth of investment in the sector. I think people are finally starting to catch on. It was weird to kind of be out there all alone when we started. Now there's good company, which is great. We're very happy to, rising tide lifts all boats.
Agreed.
I would say, we're really excited about the future of smart contracts. I think, the amount of time and money and burden saved from and some of the use cases of smart contracts is really unbelievable. I really think that the metrics and the proof points are going to drive adoption in that like soon and fast. And I think the other thing I always, that comes up for me is, and I'm just always asking myself this question. I think it's going to be really exciting to watch how the eventual integration of these various discrete legal use cases, plays out. Eventually, they're all going to form some kind of enterprise software. For law firms, it may mean that we're going to continue to see these acquisitions and partnerships happening. And some more consolidation in the market, but who's going to win the platform game right now is an open question at this point, and I think it's going to be interesting to see how they differentiate themselves.
Are you, and this would be for both of you maybe to answer, is everybody seen enough of the contract analysis? Is it as what's the word I'm looking for here? There seems to have been an explosion in that. Is it saturated now? The contract automation, contract analysis, contract AI space.
I'd love to hear what you think, Ellie, actually.
So I'll tell you that's not the area that I followed super closely, except that I do feel like there are a lot of players in that market. And so personally, when I'm thinking of new product ideas, I do not think that market is ripe for us, because I feel like there's already a lot of good, strong players that are doing really well in that community and filling that need. And while I'm always quick to say, like, Febreze wasn't the first air freshener on the market, you have to come with something different. And I feel like for me that market has a lot of strong players. And so I'm sure there's somebody who could come and, do something completely different, but that's kind of my take.
Yeah.
There's no clear leader just yet.
Yeah.
So,
but and I think it feels almost though like it's it's an area that needs a lot of players to try and clean it up, because I know that's
there's a lot of stuff.
There's, the contracts for, especially in a big enterprise, are so big and slow down business so much, but there's so many folks who have sort of jumped into that space. And so Maya, tell me then what you're most excited. Is there a product or a tool, and you don't have to give me a name, but is there something that gets you excited, that a problem that's being solved?
Well, I mean, my personal feeling is technology that can be applied across multiple use cases, including access to justice, is something that is going to be, I would immediately get very excited about that. There aren't that many out there right now. I think that's just that I know of. And I welcome learning more about that, because I really think that while it's not a silver bullet, and we could go down the whole rabbit hole of access to justice, and no one would be more happy than I would to have that conversation. But I think that when there are technologies that will address a very broad spectrum of legal users and of people who need to access legal services, I think that's what I'm most excited about.
I love all of the movement in access to justice. So we are far from the OGs in that respect, but we've been in access to justice technology because I was in legal services before I founded my company. And so I've been really, really studying the market and access to justice technology for like 7 or 8 years now. And so there is a lot of really cool movement and explosion and some really great companies. We don't have to do that tonight. That could be like a whole other conversation. Yeah. But there is, I'm super excited because when we founded Savvy Suit, we felt like there was a lot of need and a lot of things, problem areas not being solved. And so I'm excited to see people taking up that banner.
Yeah, and I'm glad you're watching right now, Mitch, because this was a discussion in a legal group earlier today about the access to justice that's taking place in California at the California Bar and now out for public comment. There are some concerns by lawyers as to how that'll impact, but there is, I think, when Maya and I had talked and Ellie and I have tweeted and DM'd each other, we all seem to have an interest in the access to justice, and that is a massive market. Let's be honest. The market that is not being served also is a market.
Well, and I mean, completely agree with that. And I would just add that I think that there's a slow but increasing level of focus on basically pointing existing or emerging technologies at multiple use cases, including access to justice.
Yes.
So it doesn't necessarily, and perhaps even better, if it's not this bespoke kind of over here with the access to justice stuff, but just a much broader range of, whose problems they're addressing,
Right.
And repurposing what we've got in many instances, I think.
I think that's a great comment here. And we have Diego Alcala ask, he's got a question, and it's not an embarrassing one. I'll ask one.
Oh, good.
There have been a bunch of recent acquisitions in the space, mostly from the same players. And Diego, if you can clarify which players you're referring to, that might be helpful. But I think some of the big players. Do you think that's good, bad? Are you indifferent on that?
I would love to hear what Ellie thinks. My personal opinion is it's just going to be going that way. It's a sign of a little bit more maturation of the vertical. We've seen it happen in fintech and ad tech and insurtech to a certain extent. And I think that, it's like I was saying, the platform play is up for grabs right now. And I think that's, those types of acquisitions are probably moving in that direction. I mean, if you think about the corporate legal department structure, what other department in a large corporation doesn't have a platform? HR has a platform, finance has a platform, and and I think it just remains to be seen who, like I said, who's going to bubble up there. But I think that the acquisitions are kind of leading in general towards more of the ultimate, platform play, or perhaps something entirely different but similar in terms of functionality.
I am thrilled by all of the acquisitions and investment in legal tech. I really am excited. I remember when we founded and we were pitching at all these damn pitching events, and we got so many questions where people are like, what the hell is legal tech? And I'm like, you go to the doctor's office, that they insert your information into doctor's management software and all these other things. Like, it's not that hard to conceptualize that your lawyer would have technology too. Mm-hmm. And yet and don't you want them to? Yeah. And yet we got question after question where people just fundamentally didn't understand our vertical, where people couldn't fathom applying software to the law. And so now, mind you, I'm not out in California. And so I'm sure that some of that has to do with my geography. But I am thrilled because I feel like it's getting investors not just on the coast to be more aware of the market, and it's going to lead to more innovation and more opportunity for people who aren't necessarily on the coast or who can't make it out there or have a great idea to find funding to ramp that up.
Totally agree.
Yeah, and my 2 cents, Diego, for what it's worth, is that the purchases by Lexis and Thompson are just like Facebook buying out Instagram and WhatsApp. You know, it's like if you got a great product, better to acquire it than to get beat out.
Yep.
Yeah.
And Mitch has a question here. In this. This has been Mitch's. If you guys don't know Mitch Jackson, he's great. He's the Honorable Mitch Jackson, is what I'm going to call him tonight. I always look for something good to call him. He's a great guy, a personal injury and a catastrophic injury attorney in Southern California. He's wondering thoughts regarding accepting Facebook Libra to assist firms getting paid by international clients. This is maybe outside Maya's focus, but
I'm gonna wait and see on that.
Yeah. And
I'm stoked.
Ellie's
not about Libra per se. That's terrifying, but about all of the cryptocurrencies. And so I watched a phenomenal TED Talk a week or 2 ago about the dark web and how the dark web is like the internet back in the day, and how you can buy really anything on there. And I started thinking about whether law firms have websites on the dark web, because you can get much more encrypted messages to your lawyer, and it doesn't have to be all nefarious. And so the idea that you could pay someone in a way that now Libra, you're going to be able to track someone. So that defeats the whole purpose of the cryptocurrencies, in my opinion. But the idea of lawyers taking kind of payment through Libra or any other cryptocurrency is fascinating to me. And I brought it up. I most recently came back from the Florida Bar Association, annual meeting. And I brought it up to someone and they were like, you're going to blow the Supreme Court justices' minds. They're just not even gonna know what to think about saying well, can people accept payment in Libra?
And Mitch is trying to lead the way on it. He is for it. And now I'm gonna go ahead and do what I occasionally do, is give bad advice to people because I don't practice and I'm not worried about getting my law license pulled, but. What might be good here, guys, is if you're a criminal defense attorney, to work that dark web angle. There could be some great clients there. Clients there. So, bad advice, good advice. Maya, tell us, we can't talk about anything upcoming, but tell us who's in your cohort currently from your first fund. Can you tell us some of the companies who are in?
Yeah, sure. So, over the last 3 years or so, we invested in 10 companies. They're all early stage, all of which really address a compelling need that was surfaced in discussions that we had with Denton's attorneys and clients across all, practices and regions and sectors. The breakdown's about 40% seed, 40% early stage, and 20% pre-seed. A few I've been working with this month, this week. Librio is a platform that delivers region-based regulatory updates in a dashboard. It really filters out the noise and kind of enables this faster, more accurate compliance and risk management for multinational companies mostly. Qualmet is a tool for legal departments to assess the value of the services that they've gotten from outside counsel, not purely on a monetary basis, but really on the value that was received and kind of the business partnership. And then Clause, also obviously a smart contracts platform. They just recently launched their first version.
They were a former guest of ours early.
Yeah. Early, we've had a few of our companies.
Yeah, I have. Yeah, we have. They were real early, and they blew my mind. Like, I was so fascinated in smart contracts after that because it was such, and that's been a couple of years since I interviewed them. And that was fascinating. And you have Hire and Esquire, right? They have been a recurring guest of ours because they accepted when we were early and unknown. So they've been a recurring guest and good friends of the show. So it doesn't look like you guys you're in your first cohort. You haven't focused in one specific area. You tried to diversify across several different offerings there.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, like I said, each one of those is, on point, addressing, we kind of took the reverse engineering sort of designy approach to identifying the challenges first, and then going out and looking for potential solutions that were solving, those problems in a cool way.
Excellent.
This is a kind of a softball question, but I'm just curious. You don't have to choose a favorite, but do you have conferences that you really look forward to every year that you're like, if you can go, you do go?
That's actually not a softball question because I don't have a good answer for it. I mean, I've obviously been to Future Law numerous times. I'm here in the Bay Area, so that's a good one. I do a lot of smaller kind of workshop conference-y type things with the Legal Design Lab at Stanford also. Okay. Love basically everything that they do. It's just mind-blowing to be in there with those folks.
They're doing some really cool work.
Yeah, and it's really it's just mind expanding to be around them. So
I think that we're going to do a project kind of and link. We're doing two similar projects and we're going to link them up because I found out, but there's like each coast we were both doing it and we're like, hey, we should probably just work together.
Nice. Oh, I love that. Economies of scale. There are ones I've been to here and there. I wouldn't, and we have a pretty full schedule in terms of clients, travel for clients and stuff like that.
Do you travel a lot for clients?
Yeah, well, we do. I mean, we meet with clients a lot. It just sort of depends on their preference. But we're brought in to talk about legal tech and the landscape, and opportunities and potential ways to address their pain points that they're surfacing, kind of as thought leaders for Dentons whenever a partner invites us to, basically, and wants us to kind of bring in that level of expertise.
Excellent. I just want to give a reminder here. Oh, by the way, Colin Levy says, Maya, he screams it in text here. So he's excited to see you. I do want to remind everybody, our guest tonight is Maya Markovich. She is the Director of Product for Nextlaw Labs. And my co-host tonight is Eli Mattern of SavvySuit.com. So if you have any questions, get them in now because we got about 8 minutes left. And I don't want to keep these ladies all night, but what are you most excited about on a grander scale for legal tech? Just very broad question here. Is there something you see that is it the investment? I'm excited that people are investing. I think many of us are, that there's a lot of investment happening now that, okay, maybe we're getting some real momentum here. Is there a problem that you think is getting solved or will be getting solved soon that you're excited about?
I mean, I think the sheer number of legal tech companies and just the year over year jump in what we're seeing and the use cases that are being addressed, I think I love that, especially as a former attorney. I mean, even as anybody who's a former attorney, it's like that was just your one little corner of practicing law, right? I mean, like the world is so big and the amount of, challenges to, it's hard, to innovate a traditional industry. And I think I love the fact that kind of focus is turning to that. And, the more legal tech companies, as far as I'm concerned, the better. The more people thinking about this and ways to address it. And I think just looking at the broader market at least for our portfolio companies and their experience is that, firms and corporate legal departments are becoming more familiar with just having those conversations and kind of asking those types of questions. And I think that the culture shift there is probably what I overall would say is the most promising part of it all.
I have a follow-up. It looks like you've got a question, Ellie, but I do have a quick follow-up to that, which is, have any of the pet peeves that you had while practicing been solved by a particular product that you know?
That's a great question.
Any of those things that just used to drive you nuts when you practiced?
Some, sure. I having not used the tools in practice, I don't really know. I'm glad that people are addressing, for instance, time entry. Total nightmare, right?
Right.
And I think there were some great options out there for that. But again, it's difficult when you're talking about, it really depends where you're practicing, right? What's the size of the firm you're in? What's the type of work you're doing? If you're in a huge firm, you really don't have much choice a lot of times as to what these kind of enterprise solutions are.
Right.
Whereas they're just small to mid-size, you really can, have a bit more autonomy and often be open and not necessarily locked into, huge multi-year contracts with these big enterprise players.
Yeah.
For the people watching at home and for all the people who watch it on YouTube later, if someone's interested in Nextlaw Labs or learning more about how they become a portfolio company or anything like that, what should they know about the next steps?
Well, that's a great question. And I always forget to mention it. We have an investment application and it's on Nextlaw.
Is it open for a window or is it rolling?
No, it's rolling. It's open 24/7. And it's, we try to keep it, pretty short and straightforward, but while still kind of gathering the minimum context that we need to kind of do the first kind of level of analysis. And that's on the nextlawventures.vc website. And I would encourage you to check that out. Also, there's obviously our websites and our LinkedIn pages. And I try really hard to keep up to date on LinkedIn and Twitter. But it's impossible, especially compared to Nick.
Nick's always on there. You can't compare yourself to him. I tweeted this morning and I was like, well, they're in California. They're not going to see it. And within an hour he had responded and I was like, why aren't you asleep?
Yeah. I'm an early riser.
Nice. The other thing I just want to mention is maybe a little bit about how we work with the portfolio companies.
Please.
That's of interest. Yeah. So, in general, we kind of aim to have a pilot or a proof of concept in Denton's as a way to gauge product fit, readiness, and collaboration so we've got a number of those underway. In general, it's not a requirement that Denton's wants a solution, but they serve as our subject matter experts and they help us in our diligence process. And, obviously they're a competitive advantage for the fund. In general, we try to stay focused on trends in legal tech, the business models and the specific use cases and pain points, while, continually trying to revisit those, of course. If we're interested in an IP platform from a Commonwealth country, for instance, we'll get some of our partners from countries like Canada or UK and get them on a call, have them check out the platform. And if they like it, they get excited about it, we'll ask them if they're interested in piloting it, and then if so, then, we become even more interested in investing. If we get to that stage, it's really what we like to say, it's our win-win-win model. Mm-hmm. Because it's obviously it's a win for the startup. They're getting access to lawyers in their target market, help them kind of develop their product market fit, potentially compress the sales cycle at least a little.
Lawyer sales.
The dreaded sales cycle. I know. That's a whole other subject.
It's a whole other subject.
Oh,
It is a
it sure is.
It's a continuing theme for 56 episodes.
Totally. Well, and not only that, but also, just the business model. But yes, again, that's an entirely separate topic. The lawyers really benefit though as well, because they get his first look at, this cutting edge legal tech solutions. They can, potentially shape it kind of to their practice and their business. And it's a win for us as investors, because when a high profile law firm or a company starts working with the startup, it becomes worth more. So there could be a company that we haven't been able to invest in yet, but would consider if we would see, they were able to kind of see its product at work in a large firm or corporate legal department. And once they're in the portfolio, when and if they do kind of make the jump over to the portfolio, then we, work hand in hand with them as much as possible to help them kind of get access to the people that they would like to and need to have access to shape and refine those products and the messaging and all that good stuff.
That's fantastic. I love it. So I think you guys, as far as I can tell, I think Nextlaw Ventures is the only legal tech specific venture firm. Best I can tell. Is that still accurate to the best of your knowledge?
Yeah, I think so. I mean, it's the only one that we know of that's active, especially, if you kind of put those, I think, and when they started, it was like, we're either really stupid or really smart, because, it was like, the first time that, at least of a highly visible way, that a firm had kind of planted a stake in the ground of multiple year funding of anything. R&D of sorts, of kind of multiple year planning beyond kind of the cash in, cash out business model at the year end. And so I think there are a lot of different versions of it. And I have heard of other ones that are kind of getting put into place, but I haven't heard of them launching or actively investing.
Yeah. So Ellie, any final questions? I don't want to keep Maya all night, and we know it's later for you. So.
It is. I stayed at work because I was like, if I go home, I'm totally putting on my pajamas, and I'm not
It
going
has
to show up in
happened.
pajamas.
It has
what your background is, and it's just a whole other ball of wax.
It has happened, and it is not, and we don't have any problem with it. So the perfect example of live video gone right when it went wrong is the guy who was reporting on North Korea, and his kid came in. Do you remember the political science?
Oh, yeah.
The kid came running in, and he just wasn't comfortable being on live video and having something like that happen. And those things happen all the time at smaller scales, and they make the show better. So, if you want to be in pajamas, we wouldn't probably even notice. So,
all right. So listen,
have caught attention.
We're doing this at an A's game.
Well, we could do that too. Ellie, did you have a last minute?
I do. Maya, for those playing along at home, I know when you and I met in person, we talked a lot about Mexican food because that's what we were eating, and you told me about your trip to Mexico. Tell the people watching just something about you that you enjoy, something, whether it's travel or anything.
I would have to say travel and my family, hopefully combined.
And traveling with your family.
Oh, yes.
Sometimes that can be hair raising.
So far, so good. Got a couple little troopers. But I think that's a whole other topic, right? I love what travel does to your mind and how it really opens your mind to different perspective, different ways of doing things, different approaches. And I think a lot of that is translatable to right here and now in the legal industry, and the increase in need for, empathy and diverse perspectives coming into the way that these new tools are starting to be designed. How'd you like that for a wrap up?
That was a nice wrap up. I will say this though. I'm going to answer this because in our emails going back and forth, I've had go Dubs from Maya for the Warriors, and I've had when are we going to get an A's game? So I think you're quite the sports fan.
I'm not as much a sports fan as an Oakland booster.
Yeah, very much.
Love me some Oakland.
Yeah.
This is the best place to live.
Yeah, that's great. I like the pride where you live. So if we didn't cover anything, Maya, is there anything that you think that startups out there or other listeners need to know before we wrap up? And then please tell us where they can find you.
Yeah, sure. I mean, let's see. In closing, I would just like to say we are super friendly. We don't stand on ceremony over here at Nextlaw Labs, and we would just love to hear. We love to hear from folks. And I think there's an email on our website called talktous@nextlawlabs.com. And I really encourage folks to reach out. We are constantly trying to stay on top of the legal tech landscape. This is a hugely informative resource for me, actually, this podcast. So thank you so much for having me on. And I really encourage folks to reach out to me. And yeah, I'm on Twitter, Markovich Maya, and on LinkedIn.
And you're pretty active on those. You'll message. I think that's how we first started off, was on LinkedIn.
Yeah, probably.
Yeah, and on Twitter we are Nextlaw Labs @we are Nextlaw Labs @Markovich Maya, and it's nextlawventures.vc.
Yes.
Okay. And Ellie, please, you've done a phenomenal job so far. Please tell us where we can find you, our co-host.
Always, you can find me anywhere you look for me. I am all over Twitter, so that's the easiest one. It's Sarah Eli Mattern. Mattern is like pattern with an M, and Ellie spelled like Eli. If you are interested in looking for me and you're not already following me, Nick tweets to me regularly, so you could probably just jack me off his site.
Yep. And
I'm also on LinkedIn and savvysuit.com. And just like you guys with your talk to us, SavvySuit, our universal email address is sayhello@savvysuit.com.
I like it. I like these emails that are better, that are improving from info at. They're a little bit more welcoming, a little bit of the empathy that you're talking about just in the email. So that's fantastic. So I want to thank you both again. Don't disappear after the recording stops. I want to thank all our guests for being here tonight. Oh, it looks like Morris Lilienthal jumped in. Thanks, Mo, for being here. My guests tonight were Maya Markovich of Nextlaw Labs, Director of Product for Nextlaw Labs, and my co-host for tonight, my phenomenal co-host for tonight, is Eli Mattern of SavvySuit.com. Thank you both for being here, and please stay tuned for episode 57. Thanks again. Bye-bye.
Thanks, you guys.
Bye.